thank you all very much for turning out for this. My name is Seth Bongartz. I'm one of your 2 state senators. With me here tonight is your other state senator, Rob Plunkett, and your rep, Dave Durfee. And of course, I'll get to Charity in just a second. But so at the end of the session this spring, Rob and I had the Commissioner of Housing and Economic Development down and a couple of other people involved in housing, and spent a day in Bennington County doing the same thing we're doing today. Oh, there's Mary Morrissey, and Representative Morrissey is here as well.
Representative Greer is here too.
What was that? Oh, Will's here? Where's Will? There he is, hi Will. So we have a couple of other reps who, so we had the commissioner down here just to give people access and the ability to ask questions and get them answered. And we did the same thing, a few stops, Manchester, Arlington, and we did Bennington that day, but Shaftsbury as well, the same thing. Shaftsbury at the end of the day today. So today we invited the Attorney General down just to give people in Bennington County access to the Attorney General. And it's of course a time, given the chaos in Washington and some of the things that she has been having to deal with, it's in a particularly important time to have her down and have her be able to answer questions. So I'll just do a very, very quick introduction. 2 notable, well, there's a lot of notable things about Charity Clark, but 2 of them are, I think for all of us, Charity grew up in Bennington County, grew up in Manchester, and still, I think it's fair to say, thinks of coming here as coming home. And maybe more importantly, in the grand scheme of things, she's the first woman elected Attorney General in the state of in Vermont's history. So, yeah, that's where we are. Yeah. I like the Bennington County thing as well. So we're going to really turn the floor over to the Attorney General, and those of us who are in the legislature will be here to just answer questions around the edges as necessary or if helpful. But really, it's Charity Clark.
Thank you, Seth. I was going to walk here with the microphone so I could see you all. It's so lovely to be here and be back in Bennington County. I am from Manchester. My oldest relative, I think, is from southern Bennington County. That would be in like 1700. My dad told me, I asked him if he was in the Green Mountain Boys, and he was like, Charity, that he predates the Green Mountain Boys, okay? So the Clarks have been here a long time. And it always feels so good to be home. But I don't think I've ever been to Shaftsbury Elementary School. We played you in soccer, but anyway, so it feels extra great to be here. I get to visit another place I've never been. But I'm happy to see all of you here tonight. What I have found is when I've gone around the state is that people want to hear one thing over and over again about my office, and that is our work on the federal level. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on tonight, telling you about and describing all the work that we are doing and hearing your feedback, which I look forward to. I always like to begin by acknowledging that Donald Trump did win the election and is our president rightfully. And there's probably some people in this room who love that and some people in this room who don't like that. The truth is, he has every right to install his vision for the country in place. That's what Americans wanted and what they asked him to do. But he doesn't have a right to violate the Constitution or federal law, and that is where my office comes in. As the Attorney General of the state, when Vermonters elected me, what they were doing is they were hiring the state's lawyer. And as the state's lawyer, it's my job to stand up for the Constitution of the United States and federal law. And in fact, I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I have certainly thought of that oath about every day since I was reelected and sworn in this past January. The past 9 months, President Trump has shown repeatedly really a disregard for the 3 branches of government and our democratic system in a flagrant and bold way. The common thread of all of the violations that he has had against the system really come down to one thing. There's a common thread, and it is the consolidation of power within the executive branch, within the president, within himself, instead of the balance that we have today. And during the first Trump administration, my office over 4 years, we sued 62 times, and about half of those lawsuits related to the environment. Well, this year, in 10 months, we've sued 31 times. So in 10 months, we've had to sue already half as much as we did the first time around, only the lawsuits are very different flavor. They're really about the rule of law, about violations related to the separations of power, the spending clause in the Constitution, all these kinds of rule of law questions, rather than being specifically about unwinding environmental protections, which was largely the topic during the first Trump administration. With the lawsuits, we have been able to block a lot of the actions taken, and the lawsuits continue and the blocking did not happen or couldn't happen based on the factual scenario of the law that was at issue. But we have been able to bring back now literally tens of millions of dollars back to the state that were wrongfully withheld. And we have also upheld some of the fundamental precepts of our democracy, and that has been a big victory so far. The lawsuits continue, however. I want to reassure you that it's taken a lot of time and energy and focus for us to bring these lawsuits, but I am not tired. And every time there's a violation of the Constitution or federal law, I will make sure that I stand up and that Vermont is a part of that lawsuit, because it is unacceptable that we have someone in the White House who's disrespecting the Constitution. And I am a patriot, and I'm always going to be for the Constitution. Our 31 lawsuits, they're various and sundry. I used to talk to groups and I would just tick through them. But now there's 31. I can't remember them all. So first let me say, we've cataloged all of the lawsuits in a nice chart for you on our website. So if you go to our website, which is ago.vermont.gov, Attorney General's Office, ago.vermont.gov, on the landing page is an American flag. And if you click on that, it will take you to a chart. And the chart sort of summarizes the lawsuit and then tells you what the status is. So if you have one lawsuit you're particularly interested in, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed and it would soothe you to see all the lawsuits, head there and you can check them out. We also have a chart of all of the friends of the court briefs we file. A friend of the court brief is like a piece of paper you file with a lawsuit that's not your lawsuit, but it does affect you. So Vermont might not be a party, but we still will be impacted by the decision and we'll let the judge know. And then finally on that chart, we also, or that page, we have a final chart that has a lot of our various guidances, like the DEI guidance on what's constitutional and what's allowed with DEI, and also our Know Your Rights guide in the immigration context. So if any of those things are of interest, I wanted you to know where to find them. The 31 lawsuits address a wide variety of topics, so I'm going to list just a few of them to give you some flavor, and then we're going to talk about some of the themes that I've identified. The most recent lawsuit we filed was related to the Solar for All program. The Solar for All program was created by our very own Senator Bernie Sanders, and he's like really excited about this. And he should be. It's $62 million just for Vermont, $7 billion nationally. And the Solar for All program is designed for low-income people to be able to essentially install solar panels at their houses. So it would reduce their energy costs and create jobs. And the number of households that were scheduled to be impacted here in Vermont is 8,300, which is a lot. And nationally, imagine what a big deal this was. $7 billion is a ton of money. The money was received in our account. We had started to use some of it for the standing up of the program. And then, without warning, the Trump administration liquidated our account. And so we brought that lawsuit last week. Wow, but still I want to tell you about every lawsuit, even though I said I wouldn't. Okay, let's move along and just give you the flavor. So we have lawsuits about voter disenfranchisement, the fake emergencies to justify the tariffs, and also usurping environmental laws. Attempts to dismantle the federal government, that was like Doge, seems like a long time ago. So much has happened since then. Violating Americans' data privacy, unconstitutionally withholding money that Congress appropriated, huge theme. And we have more lawsuits on the way. As early as tomorrow, we might be filing a lawsuit. So you can watch the news and see if you can say, I heard about this first. So I've identified some themes so that we don't have to go through every lawsuit, but just to give you a sense. Theme number one is trying to do a job the Constitution gave to someone else, like Congress. So for example, Congress gets to spend the taxpayers' money. In the spending clause in the Constitution, they get to spend our money. And the Trump administration doesn't always like how they decide to spend our money, so they're trying to change that. Well, they can't, that's unconstitutional. They also are trying to get involved with the deployment of the National Guard. Well, it's the governor of a state who gets to say, yes, we need the National Guard or not the president. Number two is the attempt to diminish the power of the powerful. I'm thinking Harvard, right? What about those fancy law firms? Nonprofits like the Soros, his foundation, and even the states. You know, we are sovereign states and we have our own powers, and we're getting bullied, and he's trying to diminish the power that we have as well. And of course the judiciary and Congress is a huge one. So number three is trying to corner the powerful into doing something they don't actually have to do. So for example, saying, I'm not going to give you this money Congress appropriated unless you agree to my DEI ban, or whatever the thing may be. Number four is making up fake emergencies to justify using emergency powers. So there's a lot of power that Congress has that the president doesn't have. And over time, Congress realized, sometimes there's an emergency and we kind of need someone like the governor, the president, the executive branch to just quickly do something. Tariffs is an example. Congress gets to levy tariffs, but there is a statute that gives, in an emergency situation, the president power to do that. So he's just saying, oh, we have an emergency. So he's making up an emergency that doesn't really qualify. And the National Guard is another example. So he's trying to make these making up these fake emergencies. And my final category is just a general catch-all of shenanigans. And those are topics where the president actually doesn't have the power. He just wishes he had the power, and so he's trying to act in a space where he doesn't actually have the power. Those are all the themes that I have, in my analysis of these cases, identified. And through all of this, I want to reassure you that I will always be right here fighting for Vermont and for our rights of the state of Vermont, for our Constitution. I consider myself to be a patriot. Someone asked me on a radio program, maybe a month ago, apparently someone had written an article, and the article said that what I and my fellow state attorneys general are doing is akin to a soft succession. And I was asked to respond to that, and I said, we are doing the opposite of a succession. We are standing up for the system. We're not rebelling against the system. We're reaffirming our democratic, constitutional, federalist democracy, and I am proud to do it every day. I always cherish these opportunities to be in community with all of you. I have learned a lot this year going around the state. I have learned a lot from hearing from you, hearing your concerns, hearing your ideas. And one of the things that I have repeatedly experienced is that people are feeling anxious and scared right now. And I totally understand where that's coming from. I also have received a lot of gratitude to the lawyers in my office, and we've been overwhelmed, honestly, with thank you notes. Like, we ran out of bulletin boards to put them. People are sending us thank you notes, like from Hallmark, that say thank you on the cover. And it's really powerful and motivating to remember people are looking at us and appreciating the hard work that everyone is doing. We have a team of lawyers who are working all the time on this issue, on these many issues. But the one thing that we decided we would do is we would brainstorm some ideas for people who feel helpless. So I'm going to read you those ideas we came up with. So if you're feeling helpless, remember the famous Joan Baez quote I live by, action is the antidote to despair. So when you're feeling despair, act. Maybe you could exercise your fundamental rights and freedoms, speak up, attend a protest, petition your government, write an op-ed to your local paper, support the free press, buy a banned book, organize a carload of friends to go volunteer for a candidate you support. That could be out of state, in a purple district, a congressional district, because the midterms are just around the corner. Send a note to support to someone fighting for something you care about. Don't buy from corporations who don't share your values. Donate to a local organization doing work that matters in your community. We talk in terms of Vermont's values, and when we think about all of that action that we can all take, here in Vermont, we're so close to our elected officials, we're so involved in our government. Something that I think about is how when we talk about being a government of the people, by the people, for the people, I feel like the for the people makes a lot of sense, and the by the people, but the of the people. In Vermont, we see that. Like, who here, raise your hand if you serving an elected office. Are you on the planning commission? Are you on the select board, the library board? Mary Morrissey, raise your hand. Are you a representative? Right? Like, everyone has served a role ever, right? Are you the town moderator for your town? And in Vermont, that's just like so clear to us. This is our time where we get to keep standing up and reaffirming the beliefs that we have here in Vermont, and that we are a community, and we have a contract of being democratic and being kind and fair to each other. And we're going to keep doing that. So here we are. Our country is strong, and I know there's probably a lot of feeling of despair or response to the chaos, but we are a strong country. We were designed to overcome a tyrant king. And I think we got to keep that in mind. This is the system that we designed, that they designed, that our ancestors designed, and it's being tested right now, but I do believe this is a test we are going to pass. So take care, and I can't wait to hear your questions and hear from you. Thank you.
If you raise your hand, somebody will bring you the mic, and state your name and your town of Powell, in your case, town of residence, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Seth and Rob. Beth Sturgeon, Pownell. I'm curious, you've got the 31 lawsuits that you filed. I know, because I'm really interested in the climate superfund law, that there are also lawsuits that you're defending against from the Trump administration. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. So the role of the Attorney General is we are the lawyer to the state. So you're right, sometimes we're bringing lawsuits against others and sometimes we're defending. The Climate Superfund Act passed pretty recently, and then a lawsuit was filed very soon after. So the law really hadn't taken effect. So we're defending that lawsuit. I don't really talk a lot about lawsuits that we're defending, I supported that law and was involved with supporting the legislature. I have to do that by statute, but I do love the legislature, and I've worked there for many years, so I was happy to do that and be supportive of that law, and we are defending it, and proudly defending it.
Sam Galeota, Sunderland. Can you speak to working with other states? Are you working with Republican states as well on some issues? Or so-called
Yes.
Republican states?
Can others hear me? Should I stand up? Is it easier if you speak?
You're good.
You're good?
You're good, yeah.
I'm good, okay. So the other states I work with on issues relating to the overstep of the federal government have so far only been Democrats. But I do work with other state attorneys general on other issues. I just had a meeting on the drive down. The other state attorneys general from all over the country got to experience our cell phone coverage trouble. I had to give my proxy to AG Formella from New Hampshire, my buddy, and I was thinking, this is something, he's a Republican, right? And I'm like, yeah, I trust you to vote for me on these issues. So when it comes to issues where there is agreement, we work really closely with other states. And we have a legacy of doing that. I mean, if you're old enough to remember, in 1998, we had a massive settlement with tobacco companies. And it was so massive that it was 1998, so that was a long time ago. But at this point, Vermont has collected, I think, $800 million. Like it will, in the next 10 years, it will be $1 billion that we got from that settlement. And that was done by the attorneys general. Back then it was Jeff Amestoy and Bill Sorrell. But so we work closely now on issues like social media companies. We banded together bipartisan efforts related to our lawsuits on and investigations on Meta and TikTok. And in addition, I just led a coalition of 47 attorneys general on a letter relating to non-consensual deepfake pornography to the payment platforms and search engines. And I was like, this says so much about the common interests that we all do have, regardless of our party affiliation. So we have, I did just go to a conference, I think in August, and I definitely remember feeling like there's certain issues like we're just not going to talk about, but there are still a lot of commonalities, and I think in some respects the attorneys general, that space is really one of the last spaces where we do get along for the most part, and we just try to not pay attention to the issues where we know there's strong disagreement, and we try to get along on all the other stuff.
Mike is coming.
I could go ahead and talk.
No, Mike is coming. Hold on.
Thank you for coming. My concern is the election that everybody thinks is going to be a watershed, and I'm very suspicious that Trump is going to do a billion things out of the box, and I'm wondering what things you are looking forward to him doing, not looking forward to, but being alarmed that what are we doing about making our elections sure and protected against all the crazy things that he'll do, and he doesn't have to go to court until the election's over, and then he loses.
This is also a concern that I have. One of the things we have to remember is that unlike many topics, elections are run by states. It's not done by the federal government. So our election here in Vermont is organized and overseen, and the official for it is our wonderful Secretary of State, Sarah Copeland-Hansis, who is a devoted public servant and has been for decades and is a good friend of mine. So she and I are in communication, our offices are in communication, like we are ready. And she is working with her fellow secretaries of state across the country on making sure that we have fair and free elections. It's something to keep an eye on and personally call out. If the federal government is going to be overstepping and trying to get involved in elections, we have to call them out. We can't wait until October to say, oh my gosh, what's happening October of next year. Every step of the way, we have to reaffirm what the system is. The system is that the states are in charge of elections, and it's our Secretary of State who's in charge, not the president.
My name is Tim Scoggins from Shaftsbury. I'm wondering about the right way to think about the lawsuits that you're bringing. Are they like civil suits that are like disputes between neighbors? Or are they more criminal in nature, like things that in olden times would have been high crimes and misdemeanors?
They're more like a civil dispute, but it's not really neighborly because it's of the federal government and the state government. I mean, we are the United States of America, and we all kind of signed a compact, if you will, that we're going to be this country, and we'll call ourselves the United States of America, and we'll be the states, but we held all of these powers, even then when we joined. And so the dynamic is so much more serious. It's more like between countries, it's so much more serious than between neighbors. But it is in civil, not criminal court. And if you are curious, we link to all of the actual lawsuits on that chart I mentioned, and you might be interested in just kind of scrolling through one. The facts, I don't know if you're a lawyer, but the facts always begin in a lawsuit, but if you want to get to the legal stuff and the summary, you skip to the end, just get out your finger there and get right to the last part, and it'll say, count 1, violation of the spending clause, or whatever it is. And you can look through from there, and it might help you understand a little bit about how it works. But generally, when we are filing these lawsuits, it's always the same claims. It's not, I was so excited to learn something, and I've learned nothing, because it's always the same. It's violation of the Constitution, different clauses, and then the Administrative Procedures Act, which is a law that tells a president's administration basically how to do their jobs, how to conduct business. You know, sometimes you have to have a hearing, or you gotta wait 60 days, or whatever it is, and they keep violating that one too. So it's been interesting to see that there's a lot of themes when it comes to the violations. So I would check that out, and I bet you'd be interested in seeing what the different claims are.
In terms of Chris Costello from Old Bennington, in terms of the violations you just alluded to, this is what I'm thinking about. I applaud all the work you're doing. It's fantastic and needs doing. But really, what is the prognosis for these suits within this administration when the laws are basically, you know, the findings are being ignored? The Justice Department is completely biased, and so is the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm relieved and somewhat surprised to report that actually the court orders are being followed. There's a little foot dragging. It always begins a little foot dragging, but then they're followed. So the Trump administration is not like defying any of the court orders. And when they are, they're getting held accountable. Like we go back and say, you know, motion to enforce your order, Your Honor. So that is reassuring. They are following the orders. Always, eventually. I agree with you that the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court, has been designed to, not because of their intellect necessarily, but they've been designed to rule in a way that's favorable to social conservatives. So those social issues, I fear, are not going to fall in the favor that I think would reflect Vermont's values. But the good news is here in Vermont, LGBTQ people are protected. Here in Vermont, our right to abortion and reproductive liberty is protected. Now, that's a privilege, and I feel a little guilty saying, oh, we're safe here in Vermont because I want the rest of the country to feel safe too. But the truth is we have to remind ourselves of that. We are safe here in Vermont. I feel like I forgot the point of your question. But that being said, I'm not hopeful, to be honest. But when it comes to rule of law questions, judges are of a certain stripe, and they like the rule of law. That's why they became lawyers in the first place. They like rules, you know. These are not artists. These are not bohemians. These are boring people who like rules. So and we've seen that before. Even the conservative justices, they like the rule of law. So I do have hope that they are going to rule in a way that we like when it comes to these questions about the rule of law and upholding the Constitution. We'll see if I'm right.
Thank you for being here tonight, and I really have to say how much I enjoy having forums like this, where we really get to have an exchange of ideas. One of the things that I'm concerned about now, and I'm sure many people are, is the security of people in our state and in our country, particularly immigrants. We have a significant immigrant population in the Bennington area and throughout the state, and as you know, two women were just apprehended in Manchester, one of whom has been returned home after a month in detention and still waiting to find out what her outcome is going to be. She doesn't know whether she's going to be deported back to Jamaica, and everybody is in fear in this country for what's going to happen to them. Now, I understand that in California, Representative Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom have proposed that there be legislation developed that will protect people in their state from being apprehended by ICE. That they're talking about having a way to prevent kidnapping, basically, and prevent ways from people being abducted and harmed in the process, saying that the state of California can then arrest the ICE agents who are doing this, whether it's the state police or local police, I'm not sure, and that they could then be adjudicated by the state justice system. Do you think that that would be something that we should be considering here in Vermont to protect the people who live here?
So, in my view, especially because I think that even MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump are responding to an immigration crisis that doesn't really align with the facts here in Vermont. not that we don't feel the effects of a kind of broken immigration system, but that is not what we're experiencing. We're not experiencing a crisis. Like, we're psyched when people move to Vermont. We're like, welcome, we get out the welcome wagon, thank you, we have a job for you, please stay, It's just a really different experience for us. So when it comes to those kinds of, taking action, thinking creatively, we should absolutely be doing that. But the bottom line that's hard to navigate is immigration is an issue assigned to the federal government. Just like elections are our issue in the states here, and education and public safety and things like that. Immigration is a national issue, it's a federal issue. So like, I have very little authority, even as the lawyer of this state, on issues related to immigration, because it's simply an issue that has been assigned to the federal government. It's been very frustrating for me as a leader who people are looking to fix these problems and for hope during this time. I feel helpless too, because I really don't have any power over immigration because it's a federal issue. So we'll always have to navigate that challenge.
My concern is that they're not providing proof, providing warrants, and proof that these people are criminals that they're supposed to be apprehending. Are they violating the law?
They're definitely violating what Donald Trump says he's trying to do. I don't know if they're violating, it's fact determinate, so it depends on the situation. But you're right that if a federal agent is violating the law, there should be accountability, and I totally agree with that. It wouldn't be me or my office who would implement that.
And who else?
Well, it would be through the federal system, because they're the ones who do immigration, yeah.
Are representatives back ballot, Peter Welch, or is it?
Yeah, you could reach out to them and see if they want to, I'm sure they're already working on it because they're so great, but you could reach out and see, yeah.
Thank you.
Mike is coming around, hang on.
We're in a government shutdown, and I don't understand all the facts, but I'm concerned about the SNAP benefits and food stamp benefits and low-income people who are having trouble getting food on their table. And I heard, and I'm hoping you can corroborate, that the food stamp program had money to cover exactly this kind of emergency in their bank account, and Trump is cutting it off. Is that, what do we do about this, and can we stop it? Can we take care of these people?
So, I mean, the good news is that the people here in Vermont who would be addressing this issue are all doing it, and we're collaborating. The governor, the legislature, and my office, we each have a role to play, and we're all doing that role. So you all should feel proud, in my opinion, of your elected leaders. I think I'm gonna let one of the legislators answer this question, because this does relate more to the work that you do than what although I know the answer, I think.
I'll take a stab at it, and then let the other two jump in if you want. But so I think, David, I've read the same news accounts that you have, that there is a relatively small amount of money in reserves that arguably is supposed to be used. It's not discretionary, it's supposed to be used and is not being used. But that it's small enough that would only cover less than a month worth of benefits, which might be enough, and we all hope that the shutdown won't last another month. But realistically, who knows? To Charity's point, this in Vermont anyway, I think we are all aligned. We're going to step up, and if there is a period where the federal government is not providing SNAP benefits that folks are eligible for, we are going to be taking care of that on a month-to-month basis anyway. That's, I believe, the legislature's position. I think the governor is on board on Wednesday this week. The governor is going to be meeting with the legislative leaders to formalize that. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Can I follow up? I'm curious, because it's a federal program. Okay, here we have a bundle of money, but doesn't it have to cycle through the federal to get to the individuals?
Yes, and so if the federal money is not made available to the state will be dipping into its own coffers to cover this cost in the meantime.
Okay, I didn't realize you had the database of who gets how much money.
We have the database, yeah, and a sticking point, I should say, is that the actual cards run through a system that is a federal system, and you may have also heard that, I mean, this is astonishing to me, honestly, that it would get to a point where the federal government would be willing to let people not get food by cutting off access basically to the system. But that's what we're hearing.
Okay, Mike's coming around, hang on, everybody.
Carl Corman from Shaftsbury. There's been a lot of concern about poll watchers in the coming election. And I'd appreciate knowing, since there's some thought about whether there needs to be counter poll watchers to potential poll watchers, will your office be getting out any guidance as to what can and cannot be done with regard to poll watching?
We're working with the Secretary of State's office on a number of election issues, and I'm not sure if this is one of them, but I'm glad you brought it up, because then I can go to her and ask and say, is this something, a guidance, are you working on a guidance? And we'll make sure that we have that so that people know what the rules are.
I think they're coming around to you.
Mark Randall from the Bennington Banner. I saw the Governor Scott put a Facebook post in the release saying there was going to be a multi-state lawsuit, and he directed his administration to support you in that regarding the SNAP money that's not been released. Am I correct? Is that something that's coming down the pipe soon?
Well, officially my office hasn't discussed potential lawsuits, so I saw that too in the newspaper. So I can't comment.
Hi, I'm Leslie Jacobson from Bennington. I'm very concerned about the upcoming elections being free and fair. I know we live in wonderful Vermont, but I'm still really nervous. A few months ago, I read, and I just wanted you to tell me if what I read is true or not, that Trump declared an executive order saying that if he wanted to, he could send the military in and literally take out voting machines. Is that true?
He definitely has some really crazy executive orders describing things he can't do, as if he can do them. He has a couple of crazy ones on elections. So the executive orders, and there's many of them, and some of them are profound and do something, but most of them don't actually do anything. It's just a lot of words. And a popular one is a lot of words and value statements and kind of crazy incendiary things sometimes. And then at the end it's, and I've instructed the secretary of such and such to look into this and write me a report. It's basically an email instructing a subordinate to do a job. And most of not maybe most is an extreme, but many of the executive orders, when you actually read what they don't do anything other than tell someone to look into something and get back to him. Devise a plan, create a report. So you're kind of waiting for the plan that the Attorney General or whoever is doing. So sometimes when you read one of those and you're like, holy smokes, this is unhinged, ask yourself to identify what it actually does. Is it just a lot of words that at the end direct someone to write a report or look into something for him? Or does it actually do something? And then sometimes when it actually does something, he doesn't have the authority to actually do that from the president's desk. That's a change that has to be done through Congress or a constitutional amendment or something else.
And is there anything we can do as citizens to help your office protect us at the elections?
Thank you. We actually have had some important support from citizens, because sometimes we need to collect data and evidence basically to get into a case to establish a look Vermont is harmed. So if we ever pull out a call, like I think it was with Social Security benefits early on, it was like, oh, we needed to hear from Vermonters the experience they were having. So sometimes we'll put out a call and say, can you please let us know if you're experiencing X, Y, or Z. But most of what we do through stakeholders. We have a lot of good relationships with a variety of stakeholders, and so we will kind of coordinate efforts with a local nonprofit or some other organization, a trade group, to get the information that we need if we're not able to get it from the governor.
So it's just gathering information.
Yeah, the information is how we establish that Vermont is a party that can sue. So we have to establish, hey, we were harmed. Look, these people were supposed to get this money, or this would be the impact if Solar for All being an example that I was giving earlier. $62 million is lost to us if this isn't rectified. So sometimes we want to establish that harm so that we can make sure that our case is strong. Yeah.
Joe Jervis from Arlington. You've talked a lot about what you're doing with respect to the federal government. Do you have numbers on how much of your staff time is focused on public safety issues in Vermont versus suing the federal government?
Mm-hmm. So we have 150 people who work in the office, and about 100 of those folks are lawyers. We have, I think, 5 to 7 lawyers who just do criminal law work. But our system here in Vermont, most of the work overwhelmingly in the criminal sphere is done by local state's attorneys. So here in Bennington County, you have Erica Marthage as your state's attorney. So every county has their own state's attorneys. It's a very unique system. I think only Maine is the other state that does it this way. And the Attorney General also has jurisdiction in every county, and we prioritize the most violent crimes. So basically that's homicide, sexual assault. In addition, the Attorney General has a little law enforcement agency called the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and that is a largely federally granted program where it's their law enforcement agents. So they investigate what used to be known as child pornography and child sexual abuse. And so about half the cases that come from the Attorney General's office are child sexual abuse cases or child sexual abuse material cases. And I always point this out because it is unbelievable, but that law enforcement agency has 2 canines, dogs who are able to smell the off-gassing of electronic storage devices like thumb drives or phones. So if we're looking for evidence of child sexual abuse material, which is stored on an electronic storage device, and we can't find it, humans can't find it, the dog will be able to go into a home or a business, and the dog will be able to find that regardless of where it's hidden. It's amazing. So it's quite interesting. So that is the role that we play on a day-to-day basis when it comes to public safety. In addition, by statute, the Attorney General provides advice to the legislature. So you will see us frequently in the legislature and especially in the judiciary committees relating to the issue of public safety. So we do a lot of work that way, and I always show up at the Vermont Police Academy graduations. They have 2 a year, and I'm always there. I don't see anyone else there. The governor's not there, the Commissioner of Public Safety, but I always show up for that. I think it's important that even though my office has that sort of much smaller purview, there's several state's attorneys' offices that are bigger than my criminal division, but I always show up as an elected statewide leader to support law enforcement and public safety.
Hi, John Brown, Shaftsbury. So would you say that having to use your office's resources to claw back money from the federal government that they illegally took, can you bill back the government for those hours? Because ostensibly we're paying the federal, it's costing us more money to get money that's already been appropriated to us, which is also taxpayer dollars. So we're kind of getting screwed twice.
Yeah. The truth is, the money, we're not spending real money. We're spending nights and weekends and holidays. So, because I like the way you think. I like the way you think. Yeah, it's true. But that's not how it works.
That's what he would do, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to get $230 million back for being sued for committing crimes. So
Yeah.
being charged.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Take a page out of this one.
sorry, I'm asking a question. What's your working relationship with the governor?
Hang on,
Like, does he,
for the mic there.
I said my name already, Sunderland. But what's your working relationship with the governor? Does he support the 31 lawsuits? I mean, do you meet with him all the time?
We have a pretty good working relationship, and obviously we have conflict, which has, sometimes that's been written about. I think that's normal. But the Attorney General serves as the state's lawyer, and so most of the lawyers in my office are serving, we call them client agencies, but they're his agencies, the Agency of Education, we've got a lawyer there, Department of Taxes, we've got lawyers, Human Services, you know, you name it, we've got lawyers there. And so we certainly respect each other and work well. It's not the two of us who work closely together, it's other staff people working together. The governor has supported some of our lawsuits and not all of our lawsuits. That's his prerogative, he's the governor. So we've just navigated around it when he hasn't been supportive.
Hi, thanks for being here. Appreciate your time. My name is Mary Ellen Mahoney. I live on Lower East Road in Shaftsbury. We've been working with David. There's a group of us. I see some neighbors here. We have issues with our wells, our private wells. PFOAs, there's been studies that have been going on. There's a few of us here tonight. I'm speaking for some. We'd like to know what support we have from Montpelier to get that number down to 4, the EPA number, to get POA systems, to get our wells cleaned up, as opposed to the 20 for the green, healthy state of Vermont. Can you address that, please?
I'm a litigator, so that's my lane. And we, of course, are in a lawsuit right now related to PFAS. That trial ready date got bumped to next year. When it comes to those technical issues, it's the Agency of Natural Resources who we look to. So I would defer to them unless someone here has more information.
Dave knows the most about this.
Yeah, and I don't think that you probably came looking to talk to me again, Mary Ellen, but.
I'm just looking to see what the support is, if anybody even has heard of it.
So the answer that I can give you is that, and this is not new information since the meeting that we had across the street several weeks back, but that the Agency of Natural Resources was preparing to make a rule change that would lower that parts per trillion number from 20, which is where the state is now, to the 4 that EPA had proposed. That it was going to have to go through the, it's not LCAR, Seth, it's ICAR, yeah. And I want to say that we heard October, and again, this is several weeks ago now, and I have not been tracking that to see whether they've met and where that stands. So I don't know whether you might have anything new to say about that stuff, but it was an encouraging report anyway. And the only other thought I would have, Attorney General Clark, is whether the lawsuit that you just referred to is with Saint-Gobain. And if I don't know if there's anything that you can say about the progress on that.
So we had a lawsuit with Saint-Gobain that settled. This is a lawsuit with the manufacturers, 3M and DuPont. They manufactured PFAS, and it's been going on for many, many years. I think maybe 7 years, but we're almost at the end, which I'm really looking forward to. It was supposed to be this fall, I think, and it got moved until next year, but the trial ready date is then, and I am really excited to get to trial so that we can, explain to the court and the jury what's happened here in Bennington County and in Vermont. So the impacts of PFAS, which I'm sure because you guys live here, I'm sure you all are very aware, but I think the more you research, the more disturbing it is. I have been advocating for the legislature to ban a lot of PFAS products, and I know there's going to be more legislation proposed this session. So, and other states are doing this too, so we're not like little Vermont, novel state. You know, because the companies will complain and say, oh, we can't do everything different for Vermont. So it's very helpful when a bigger state leads the way, and we have that. So it's really time for us to be eliminating the chemicals that are harming us and our environment from being in circulation. So that's another part of it that I think is important.
Just to follow up on that. So as residents, we're just not getting answers. David, you mentioned there's some reports. How do you have access and how do we know what's happening and what we need to do to help you, help us, move our situation with our poisoned wells, our contaminated wells, not only impacting our health, our mental health, certainly our financial bottom line. How do we stay connected with that? That would be wonderful to be able to have a source.
I will make sure that the three of us follow up and see what the status of that part per trillion number is. That will have an impact on quite a few people, I think, including in the Lower East Road area. And then, yeah, beyond that, I think that we can continue to have conversations with the group, and I would encourage anybody, all of the neighbors, to continue speaking up and speaking out. I know that the town is working on a letter to the governor that we hope to have everybody sign on to. I inquired about that letter a week and a half ago, and I hope that there'll be a draft ready for us to look at soon.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to take too much time, but I am going to stay on this for another minute. You said the three of you will get together and chat and find out some information. When can we expect that information so we have a timeline to stay on, please?
I think later this week.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
You have my contact information?
Yes, yeah.
And then I'll disperse it to everyone. Does that work?
That works fine, yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
So since we have a little more time, I see no hands for the moment. Oh, there's a hand. Okay, I'll do this afterwards.
Hi, good evening. Pat Harris, Shaftsbury, Vermont. My question is back to immigration. Are there any Vermont state laws or policies to require ICE agents, immigration, to clearly identify themselves and show their certification? Because there's many instances where it appears that they're not. Some of them are not even in a uniform necessarily. No identification of what law enforcement agency that they may be associated with. And is there anything that a person can do, or the state can do, local law enforcement maybe, to require them to do that?
So we have a Know Your Rights guide on our website.
I got it.
Okay, and that lays out some of these, the answers to your questions. They do, if you ask for identification, they have to show you identification. But this is where another important thing comes up. If you see someone and you're concerned, get out your phone and record. Who knows, you might capture the moment where, identification is requested and denied, right, improperly. So keep that in mind. If you're a witness, you feel helpless, that's something you can do is record, and if you feel safe, of course. So yes, there's a lot of rights that people have when it comes to immigration and ICE enforcement. You'd be surprised, that's one of them. Also, if English isn't your first language and you struggle to understand what's being given to you, you have a right to get the document in a language you can understand. So there's a lot of rights that do go along with that. In terms of what the state can do, because immigration is a federal issue, there is a limit. There are things that could be done, but there is a limit to how much authority the state can exert. I mean, it's kind of like the ICE agents are allowed to do these things, and you might be able to shape it a little bit, but it really is a federal issue. And that's another reason why we feel so helpless, because those of us who have power here in the state and want to be helpful and protective don't have the same kind of power over this issue we do about many other issues.
Follow. Follow me, Mike. Are there situations if a local law enforcement, Vermont State Police, local law enforcement, see ICE agents performing what they deem illegal acts, can they arrest them?
I don't think so, but don't hold me to it because I haven't done research, but I don't think so because that is a conflict between the two levels of government, and immigration is a federal issue that is appropriate for immigration officials. Now, if there is a crime being committed by an ICE official, that doesn't mean that we can't arrest them if they're drunken driving, for example, or something like that. It doesn't mean that they're immune from all prosecution, but just that's what's, like I said, that's what's so tricky about immigration is we feel so helpless, and the actions that are being done by the federal government really don't suit Vermont, our values, yeah, but also just what's happening with immigration, with immigrants here. We need immigrants, and it's just a different situation than I think they're responding to in other places. So it's very frustrating because we don't have the power, we don't have the authority, and yet we see something that's being done that's out of step with really what makes sense for Vermont. It's not Vermont-sized,
I understand the answer, but that's something we have to fix.
Right.
That's something we have to fix. Thank you.
Hi, Pete Swanson, Shaftsbury. I live on Lower East Road next to Mel. And I know you know me anyway as far as the water goes, but did I hear you say you're not going to sue St. Gobain?
We already did, and it's that lawsuit.
Shaftesbury didn't sell.
Oh, okay, so different matters.
We live in Shaftesbury.
Yeah. Yep, so they're looking at
And
that.
that's where they've confirmed the water contamination is coming from. I mean, we're 1,500 feet past when they stop
Yes.
people water.
Yep.
And we spent a lot of money on wells and things up there, and it's a contaminated well, 350 feet deep. You could say it hasn't been there for a while. It's got to be there. It's in all the land. It's all poisoned everywhere, and I don't understand why if the state isn't going after St. Gobain
Yep.
and the town of Shaftsbury.
Yeah, they're looking at that.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Vaughn. I live in Oak Bennington now, but I spent a long time in Shaftsbury. I just have a question for you. It's kind of a finishing question, but what keeps you up at night? What is the one thing that you worry about the most?
Those are two different questions. It's the New York Times Sudoku puzzles that actually keep me up at night. I'm worried about the election. That's what I'm most worried about. That's what keeps me up. And then I do a Sudoku puzzle and I go to sleep.
With the current administration, you're forced, and Vermont's forced to be reactionary to things that come down the pipe. Whatever keeps Trump up at night, he tends to write and tell us all about. Is there anything that Vermont can do to make some sort of preemptive statement against the current administration's future actions that would harm the state? I think of like a unruly child and how they're constantly like pushing and pushing and pushing the limits. Is there anything that we can do to that effect?
In some sense, we have done that because sometimes we see things coming down the pipe because there's like a comment period on a rule, and we will get involved and issue a letter. Sometimes we do that. We issue letters. And it's a value statement. We're also like staking out the ground. Like, don't do this because we're going to get involved, and we have gotten involved many times, and we're not afraid to get involved. So that's one thing that we do in a formal sense. I think that this isn't even in my lane, it's in your lane, but I feel like the protests and the rallies that we have are really helpful and effective because they remind each other, they remind us what our values are, and for people who do not feel safe or are disabled and unable to come to the protest. I always think about the people who are worried about, because of their immigration status or whatever, because of their race, they aren't comfortable protesting. But when we go out, we are protesting and they hear us and they hear our, love for them and neighborliness, and it's very valuable. So it's something that we can do. It is really helpful. And I might just feel like, oh, I feel good, but is this really doing any help? It really is helpful. So I think showing up, protesting, and showing love for our neighbors there's always a time for that.
I guess I don't, this is Shirley Adams from Bennington. I guess I don't necessarily disagree with you about protesting, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be more effective for us to be demanding more response from our Congress, our senators and our representatives in Washington changing laws. And if you don't like the current law, shouldn't they be addressing some of these issues? Aren't they the source of our current budget conundrum? So I wouldn't point the big finger at the federal government. There are 3 branches, and one of them isn't working very well, and I would say that's Congress.
Yeah.
Just my thought.
I don't even think our congresswoman or 2 senators would disagree with you about that. I think that they would agree it's very dysfunctional and it's disappointing, especially if you're older and you remember when it felt like it was dysfunctional in the 90s and you're like, wow, that was like the picture of function compared to this. So it's gotten really bad. I agree with you completely.
Maybe it's time to change some faces.
Just a quick comment in light of protesting. I've had quite a few friends and family ask me if I think it does any good. And my answer is we are exercising our constitutional right of free assembly and freedom of speech in Trump's face. We need to do this.
I totally agree.
Every time I do that, somebody...
Hi, Karen Mellinger from Shaftsbury. I have a sort of funny question. There have been reports of U.S. citizens that have been taken by ICE, who have been assaulted by ICE, and then you read that they were released 2 days later. Do those people have any rights against the government?
I'm not an immigration attorney, so I'm not the best person to answer that. I'm sorry. I would, if you have, now they're very busy, so maybe answering your questions isn't going to be the top of the priority, but the group that we always refer people to with immigration concerns is the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project. They're amazing. Their leader is a person named Jill Martin Diaz. They're an amazing speaker and have a lot of words of wisdom on this topic. So if you ever have the opportunity to hear Jill or have a presentation or you're ever looped in on the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, they're pretty amazing. And they are very under-resourced and don't have enough lawyers, and they do a lot with a little, so support them if you can.
She was here. She actually came down
and
gave a workshop at the local.
Oh, amazing.
She's terrific.
Yeah.
They are terrific.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I just wondered, it just doesn't seem right, obviously. And these are people that may have lost a day of work and what are their rights? Can they sue?
Right.
Wrongful arrest or, anyway, thank you. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Well, I've never heard anybody complain about a meeting getting over a little bit early. We had a great turnout in Manchester, we had a great turnout in Arlington, and this is an even bigger turnout tonight. So it really is wonderful that people care as much as they care, and as you all care as much as you care. And I really want to, on behalf of, I think, all of us, thank the Attorney General for taking... spending with us. So thanks everybody for coming. See you soon.